Welcome to the Cardboard Crash Course. My name's Ethan, and this is so exciting. We have a new announcement for Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, the second expansion after Prophecy of Kings, called Thunder's Edge. Thunder's Edge was announced at Gen Con today, the day of recording this video, and it came out with a very simple announcement video telling us what the name of the expansion was and when it was coming out, which is October 24th of this year. It's yet to be seen as to whether there will be actual copies at Gen Con later in the next couple of days, but we're going to figure that out really shortly. Most likely, nobody will get their hands on it until October 24th. I'm going to work to try to see if I can get something done with FFG to get a how to play video out to you by that date, but without further ado, let's check out the announcement article that came out shortly after that video. There will be a link to that video in the description below, so go ahead and watch that. It's only about 40 seconds, but once you're done with that, come back to here and I'll talk about the announcement article. As you can see, I'm kind of out of breath because I'm so excited, but don't worry, we're going to go through this bit by bit. So first of all, we have this picture and a little bit of lore introducing the new expansion. The galaxy stands on the edge of a blade. Disasters approach from all directions, and the Council lacks the united will to respond to any of the threats. In the midst of this turmoil, new leaders arise, bringing visions of a brighter future. As all heads turn to the mysterious world of Thunder's Edge, these would-be survivors, or conquerors, will all be tested. The question remains, will the future lead to calamity or prosperity? A great struggle is coming, and only the greatest among them all will triumph. Fantasy Flight Games is thrilled to announce Thunder's Edge, a new expansion for Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. This colossal expansion brings the classic interstellar conflict to a breaking point, where everything revolves around the titular planet of Thunder's Edge. New factions take to the galactic stage, new worlds emerge for you to explore or exploit, and multiple new mechanics provide you with tools in your struggle for the throne. Also included are rules and components for a brand new way to play, this is super exciting, a brand new way to play the game Twilights Fall, which is almost an entirely new game in and of itself. We've got a lot to cover today, so without further ado, let's dive into Thunder's Edge. Alright, so here's finally the planet that we were teased all the way back at Gen Con last year. This is Thunder's Edge itself. So, a new frontier. And what better way to begin a preview of Thunder's Edge than a look at the titular planet itself? So Thunder's Edge has two different sides, the Thunder's Edge Expedition side and the Thunder's Edge Planet side. I'm going to keep leaving the pictures provided up on screen for you all to look at, and I'm going to read off the little blurbs in between each of the pictures while we're talking about it. So this is Thunder's Edge, the Expedition, and the Planet side separately. Beginning the game off the board, the Legend of Thunder's Edge starts with an expedition. At the end of your turn, you can choose to commit to the expedition and lay claim to an unclaimed piece of the planet. Each slice of Thunder's Edge has a different cost associated with it. So as we can see here, it's different technology types, resources, action cards, secret objectives, all kinds of different costs that each of the slices have. The first time you claim one of the expedition slices, you gain your faction's Breakthrough, which is a new faction-specific component that we'll go over in a moment. After all 6 slices of Thunder's Edge are claimed, the expedition is complete, and the player who claimed the final slice flips the tile to its planet side and places it in a system of their choice, as long as it doesn't have a planet, a supernova, or a printed wormhole. So, when you're done exploring or doing the expedition of Thunder's Edge and everybody's gotten their breakthroughs, it'll actually appear in an empty system, which is very cool. Then the player who claimed the most slices takes control of it. So, placing infantry on the planet equal to the number of slices they claimed. So, the player who does the last expedition chooses where it goes, but then the player who did the most actually takes control of it. So moving on to the actual Thunder's Edge planet card. As a legendary planet, controlling Thunder's Edge provides some hefty boons, in addition to the planet itself providing an impressive 5 resources, which is actually really good. It's 5 resources and 1 influence. The Jupiter Brain ability on its legendary planet card grants you access to your Breakthrough if you don't already have it, and lets you perform an extra action at the end of your turn once per round. So, If you didn't do the expedition at all on Thunder's Edge, the idea is that you could take it from somebody else, and the Legendary Planet card would give you your breakthrough if you missed out on it during the expedition. I would imagine that most players will probably have it, but I know it'll be kind of like a hot potato game as to who actually completes the expedition. So you might end up having it, but this is a way to get it if you never got it beforehand. This lets you perform an extra action at the end of your turn once per round. So it reads, gain your breakthrough when you gain this card if you don't already have it, and you may exhaust this card at the end of your turn to perform an action. Being able to perform 2 actions in one turn breaks open the door to all sorts of possibilities, which means control of this new frontier world could quite literally decide the fate of the game. We all know that's true because Fleet Log can totally break the game, so having that and this would be insane. So, moving on to breakthroughs. Speaking of breaking open possibilities, let's talk about breakthroughs. In Thunder's Edge, every faction in the game, including the base game and Prophecy of Kings expansion, gains one of these special new cards that must be unlocked during gameplay. Each breakthrough has 2 effects, a special ability and a synergy between technology colors, as we see in the bottom and the back there. The abilities on these breakthroughs are, as you'd expect, quite powerful. For example, the Arbrek's Psychospore breakthrough lets them use an action to remove a command token from a system and gain an infantry there, opening up the system for additional tactical actions that round. In the Embers of Muat's case, their Stellar Genesis breakthrough lets them create an entirely new planet. So let's first read Psychospore. It's a red-green synergy between those 2 technologies, which we will talk about in a moment, don't worry. But the action reads, exhaust this card to remove a command token from a system that contains 1 or more of your infantry and return it to your reinforcements, then place an infantry in that system. So this is a fantastic way to balance out some of the factions that need it without actually having to change components. I imagine, and we'll see later on, because we don't just have this article, we also have the store page to talk about a couple of things. They are changing a couple of components, but I imagine they don't want to change too many. These breakthroughs are just an amazing way to introduce some new things to balance out factions. It kind of like our agents that you have to unlock, which is cool. I wonder if it's going to have a separate like breakthrough sheet, kind of like how you have the command sheet and the leader sheet. I wonder if it's going to be a separate breakthrough sheet. Anyway, let's talk about the Stellar Genesis. It is the Muat's breakthrough. So they're not all going to be actions, as we see right away. When you gain this card, place the Avernus planet token into a non-home system that is adjacent to a planet you control. Gain control of and ready it. After you move one of your War Sons out of or through Avernus' system and into a non-home system, you may move the Avernus token with it. So it's a red-yellow, which we'll talk about again in a moment, but this is really cool. We don't actually have a picture of Avernus or what it is, but we do know that they can not only create a supernova with their hero, but now they can create a planet with their breakthrough, which makes Muat really cool. In addition to their abilities, each breakthrough grants synergy between 2 technology colors. This is a fairly simple yet powerful effect. Whenever you are researching technology or scoring technology-related objectives, you can treat the tech colors on your breakthrough as either of the 2 for purposes of fulfilling requirements, but not both. So if you were trying to do Assault Cannon and you had Scanlink Drone Network as the Muat with the Stellar Genesis breakthrough, you could treat Scanlink Drone Network as a red technology to research Assault Cannon, as long as you had 2 other reds. Or you could have 3 yellows and then treat them all as 3 reds to do it. Any combination of the 2, which makes researching technologies really interesting. And it's very interesting that they gave Arborek a red-green, but maybe red's getting a little bit of an update. I hope so. This means that the Arbrek's breakthrough allows them to treat their red technology/technology specialties as green ones or vice versa, while the Embers of Muat lets them treat red as yellow or yellow as red. You can choose which color to use between the 2 at any given time, but you can't use both at once, so be sure to plan accordingly. One way or another, it's just more flexibility. All right. When I came to this part and I looked at this picture, I nearly had a heart attack. This looks so cool, and we're going to talk about it now. It's called the Fracture. Naturally, gaining your faction's breakthrough is a serious boon, but there's something else that can be triggered alongside them, the fracture. This enigmatic area of space isn't connected to the rest of the galaxy in the traditional sense, and it is chock full of rewards and resources for you and your opponents to explore. Whenever a player gains their breakthrough, they roll a die. If the result is a 1 or a 10, the fracture enters play, so that's a 20% chance. So if you're playing, it's 20% chance 6 times. Somebody can leave the math down there, but if each person gets their breakthrough, what's the chances of seeing fracture? Fairly high, but you won't see it in every single game. At least you won't see a lot of it in every game. The fracture has its own set of system tiles, and they can only be accessed through Ingress tokens, which are the opposite of these little portal-looking things on the fracture, which are placed at certain spots throughout the galaxy when the fracture enters play. Each planet within the fracture gives you a relic when you gain control of it, and the new legendary planet Styx also gains you a victory point for as long as you have it, thanks to its ability, A Song Like Marrow. However, you won't be able to just waltz in and take these planets for yourself after all. This alternate space is already occupied. Okay, so essentially, this is an entirely alternate universe that you're opening up into our main universe that already has people, factions, that live there. I skimmed over it, but it said that the fracture gives you a relic as you take the planet, so that's these little icons next to any legendary planet symbols, the tiny little relic icons, which is cool. I hope that this expansion can be played without Prophecy of Kings, which would mean that we would need new relics and stuff in order to actually play it. So I hope we're getting new relics and everything. Maybe fracture-specific relics would be interesting. Anyway, let's talk about Styx and A Song Like Marrow. Styx is a 4-resource and 0-influence planet. It says where light goes to die, which is pretty epic. But the Song Like Marrow is the legendary planet ability. It reads, when you gain this card, gain a victory point. When you lose this card, lose a victory point. So there's no actual action or ability on it. It's just basically a Shard of the Throne built right into Styx. Okay, this is exciting. Here are gray unit pieces. Thunder's Edge introduces a set of neutral units to the galactic stage, represented by their own set of gray unit pieces. These units are a non-player force that engages you in combat if you enter their turf. And the Fracture enters play with a handful of neutral units guarding each planet. Other effects can occasionally bring neutral units into play as well, making the galaxy feel more alive than ever. So this was teased in the Ordinian scenario because it had you place neutral units, but we had no way of actually doing that rules-wise before. It doesn't explain how these are going to work, what kind of abilities or combat values they have, but that is cool, and it's cool that we have a gray set of unit pieces. What I really hope is that they also give us like alliance cards and promissory notes and stuff for them, because I would really like to just play with the gray unit pieces, although maybe they won't have like an actual full set. We don't know anything about them other than that so far. Let's talk about Galactic Events. An eventful galaxy. Up until this point, we've been covering the new features of Thunder's Edge that can come up during a game of Twilight Imperium. However, this expansion also introduces new mechanic that can affect the game from the very beginning, Galactic Events. These optional special event cards can be chosen during setup, and each of them provides new modifiers and rules that can be significantly impacted the way the game is played. For example, the Stellar Atomics event grants each player a one-time delete button that can wipe a planet clean of enemy forces, but also bars them from voting in the agenda phase if they do so. So let's actually read that. Stellar Atomics. During setup, each player places one of their control tokens on this card. All players can perform the following action. Action. Discard your control token from this card to destroy all ground forces and structures on any non-home planet. If you do not have a control token on this card, you cannot vote or play action cards during the agenda phase. So, very interesting. We've seen Age of Commerce. Age of Commerce event boosts the galactic economy to soaring heights, while the Age of Fighters event changes what space combat looks like for the entire game. The civilized society makes scoring public objectives a much more civil affair, while the dangerous wilds event fills hazardous planets with deadly fauna that must be dealt with if you want to establish a foothold. So we've already talked about Age of Commerce in previous videos, but let's talk about Age of Fighters. During setup, all players gain the Fighter 2 unit upgrade tech. The Nalu Collective instead, of course, gains the Hybrid Crystal Fighter tech. Fighters that count against your fleet pool have capacity value of 1. Fighters cannot transport other fighters. Non-fighter ships are purged when they are destroyed. So that's really weird and interesting. Definitely a higher complexity on that one. Civilized society. So I was skimming through this before actually going through it with you all, and this one I think is my favorite. It's so different. It reads, during setup, turn all public objectives face up. There is no limit to the number of public objectives a player may score during the status phase. So that's crazy. The game, however, does not end immediately when a player reaches the required number of victory points. Instead, it ends at the end of that round's status phase, and the player with the most victory points wins. In the case of a tie, the tied players total the influence values of their controlled planets and their unspent trade goods. The player or players with the highest total win the game. So that's cool. It puts a lot of people's sight onto Mechatol Rex because it's such a powerful influence carrier, so that would be a really cool way to speed up the game especially. Let's look at Dangerous Wilds now. During setup, place neutral infantry on each hazardous planet equal to that planet's resource value. At the end of each round, for each hazardous planet that is not controlled, replenish any neutral units that were destroyed during the game round. When a player gains control of a hazardous planet from the planet deck, they may research one technology. They may ignore a number of the technology prerequisites equal to the planet's resource value. So that's just sick. That allows you to get so much tech. There are 20 of these galactic events in total, and you can mix and match them to create your own unique Twilight Imperium experience. With so many options at your disposal, no two games will ever be the same. I want you guys to send me a VOD of a game that you play with all 20 at once and tell me how it goes. Okay, now we're into the unnecessary but completely obnoxiously exciting part of this video, which is the new factions. Now they only show one, but we do get to see one other later on in the actual store page, which I will touch on. Newcomers to the Galactic stage. Of course, this wouldn't be an expansion to Twilight Imperium without some new playable factions. There are 5 new factions included in Thunder's Edge, each with their own spread of unique abilities, faction-specific mechs, technologies, leaders, and more. Let's look at one of these new factions now. This is Last Bastion. I'm going to talk about them from this blurb, from this whole big blurb under them, and then we'll actually go through the faction abilities and such. Introducing Last Bastion. Born from what was supposed to be a temporary joint military expedition between the Extra Kingdom and the Federation of Sol, the Salient Son Joint Task Force found themselves in an unwinnable situation with the necrovirus interrupting their mission. Despite years of fighting a hopeless battle, the Extra and human soldiers forged an unbreakable bond, and their sheer determination caused others to rally to their cause. Eventually, their clawing way to victory against impossible odds, the Salient Son declared themselves an independent state, a bulwark against the destructive forces menacing planets on the rim, a last bastion. As a symbol of hope in a harsh frontier, Last Bastion is used to getting the most out of what little resources they have available. Their Liberate ability can potentially allow you to immediately ready a planet if you gain control of it, giving you immediate access to the planet's resources. The combined well with their space docks, the 4X41C Helio 6, which allow the Bastion to increase the effective resources. This means the faction can get a surprising amount of mileage out of just a few systems. That said, once the Bastion is able to spread their influence, they can utilize their flagship, the Igero, to great effect, gaining a boost in combat capability for every non-home system they placed a flag in. The Bastion's resourcefulness is certainly one of their greatest strengths, but where they truly shine is their ability to galvanize. A galvanized unit rolls an additional die, essentially doubling their effectiveness across the board. This represents Last Bastion's indomitable spirit, and once again their ability to get the most out of what little they have. You can galvanize units through the use of the Bastion's Phoenix Standard ability, or through effects like their mech, the A3 Valiants, as you'll want to do as much as possible to show the galaxy exactly why the Bastion never gave up in the face of impossible odds. We'll introduce the 4 other new factions at a later date, so look forward to seeing who else is taking to the galactic stage. Let's talk about the faction sheet and then we'll look at the mech. This is a little blurry, they don't actually have like a really nice picture of it, so sorry about that, but this is kind of the best I can do. Their little blurb is, "There is no sacrifice I would not make to see this through. No choice but forward, no option but victory. Go, we will handle this." Sick. So this is the symbol of the Salient Sons, joint task force from the Ordinian scenario from Codex 4, which is cool. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check that out in the top right corner here. That's me talking about the Codex 4. Let's look at their faction abilities. First of all, we have Liberate. When you gain control of a planet, ready that planet if it contains a number of your infantry equal to or greater than that planet's resource value. Otherwise, place 1 infantry on that planet. So you can take things from other people and flip them over or just defend them greater, which is cool. I imagine that's probably just going to be one of their nice abilities, but isn't completely game-changing. We'll see, though. Next, we have Galvanize, which is kind of a new mechanic. When a game effect instructs a player to galvanize a unit, they place a galvanize token beneath it if it does not have one. Galvanized units roll 1 additional die for combat rolls and unit abilities. And then Phoenix Standard cleans that up. So the Phoenix Standard ability says at the end of combat, you may galvanize one of your units that participated. So every single combat, whether it's in the sky or down at the ground, can galvanize. They only have 1 commodity, so good luck playing with an X-1 meta with a single commodity faction, but that does make sense for a faction that's basically just a military expedition that would just barely didn't fail, which is cool. Now, they have a specific flagship, of course, but they also have a space dock, which I want to go over their flagship first, the Agiro. This is a 8 cost, 9 combat, movement of 1 and 3 capacity flagship with sustained damage, which is all not great, but it has production 1, which is cool. It says apply +1 to the result of each of this unit's combat rolls for each non-home system that contains a planet you control. So that's the entire game board. So as you move with the flagship across the game board, you are going to be able to liberate systems, taking control of them easier and holding them easier, and then using them and the production ability of this to just continuously grow stronger and stronger, which kind of reminds me somewhat in between the Xjaw and the Clan of Sar, with the production ability of a moving thing, which is cool. I wonder if they start with their flagship. That would be so awesome, but we'll see. We don't actually get to see the back of their sheet. Next up, we have the faction-specific Space Dock, the 4x4 1C Helios 6. It has a production of X, which production value equal to 2 more than the resource value of the planet, which is normal. But it does say the resource value of the planet is increased by 1. So it's kind of 3 more than the printed value, but no matter what, it's increased by 1. And it also says up to 3 fighters do not count against your ship's capacity, which is awesome. But it's basically just like an attachment to the system or to the planet, additionally on top of being a space dock. It upgrades with 2 yellow prerequisites, but we don't get to see its upgrade. So the last faction is cool. I like the whole galvanizing thing where you don't have many units, but the ones you do have are very strong. That is very neat. So next up, they're covering a couple of things in the Codex, and then we'll jump back into new stuff. In addition to introducing new factions to the game, Thunder's Edge also provides a pile of resources for all the previously released factions, including a spread of brand new faction reference cards. Those were in the Codex, but they're really nice. These cards provide a detailed snapshot of each faction's abilities, starting units and tech, and other details on what makes them stand out amongst the rest, as well as provide a general complexity gauge to help you narrow down the choices when choosing who to play. Alternatively, since these reference cards all have the same back, you can use them as handy and easy way to randomize or even draft factions during the setup, giving you even more options to help you mix up your game. Which is nice, and I haven't actually ever done that, but maybe I will, starting now. So speaking of the reference cards, which was something that came out in the Codex, we have a collected Codex, which this part is really exciting, especially for players who never chose to actually print out the Codex. By now, we've covered quite a bit of what can be found within the Thunder's Edge expansion, but we're still not done. Alongside the mountain of new content unique to the expansion itself, Thunder's Edge also includes a compilation of the standard game components from each Twilight Codex, which were all previously only available through print and play. This includes the Codex action cards, relics, exploration cards, the entire Council Colaris faction, and more. Now, every fan of Twilight Imperium can experience this expanded content for the game even if you couldn't get it printed before. This means that nearly all of the content for Twilight Imperium 4th edition is now officially collected and available between its 3 products, the base game, the Prophecy of Kings expansion, and now Thunder's Edge. But that's not all. In addition to providing all of the content from the Codex, Thunder's Edge also includes a little faction booster for the spin-off in the Twilight Imperium franchise, Twilight Inscription. I don't know if any of you guys have ever played Twilight Inscription, but I find it to be a decent amount of fun if you like roll and writes. This roll and write game already had the first 24 TI expansions as playable options, and Thunder's Edge adds the remaining 6 to round out the roster. That's a nice little addition. They already had added the Council Colaris in the Codex, but now we have the other 5. So we can see the Last Bastion here, and the Council Colaris. That said, if you know someone who only owns Twilight Inscription and still wants to have all the factions, tell them not to worry. The new faction cards will also be uploaded as free print and play content to the website all around the release of Thunder's Edge. The epic roll and write experience just got a little bigger. So for the literal 2 people on the entire planet who only have Inscription and not Imperium, there you go. Which is nice. To be fair, that is nice. It's good to have print and play. It's good that they're including them. It is a fun game. I mean, it genuinely feel like I have to defend it, but that's what happens when you have a TI roll and write spinoff, is you kind of have to defend it, but it is a good time. All right, now here is something that we don't know basically anything about, but still excites me so much. On top of all the Galactic Events, we now have an entirely new game mode called Twilights Fall. Finally, we have a brand new way to play in Twilight Imperium Twilights Fall. Set in a dark alternate future, the Twilights Fall mode has each player take up the mantle of a mad Mahawked king, building their own custom faction from the scraps of interstellar civilization. With its own spread of unique faction sheets, strategy cards, and components, Twilight's Fall is practically an entire new game in and of itself. We share more details about this colossal addition to the game in its own dedicated article at a later date, so stay tuned. What this reminds me of is like Frankendraft, which is a community-driven thing where you just take components from a bunch of different factions and mix them together. This picture is super cool and is making me excited for it, but that's essentially what it sounds like, and having an official way to do that within the rules that makes enough sense is cool. And I essentially think lore-wise, this is going to be what is happening in the alternate universe that the fracture is coming from. Don't quote me on that because it's not written here. I just think that's kind of the idea, is that this Thunder's Edge expansion all has to do with an alternate universe coming through. All right, Echoes of Memory. So stay tuned, don't worry. We're gonna talk about this book, and then we're gonna look at a couple other things about this expansion that this article doesn't show. But let's just read this really quick because it is neat. And I do think books are a great way to learn more about TI. This is Thunder's Edge, Echoes of Memory. And if that's not enough TI for you, or our partners at Aconite Books have also announced their next TI novel, Thunder's Edge, Echoes of Memory. Written by Sarah Cockwell, this novel serves as a prequel to the events of Thunder's Edge and follows the familiar face of a Hakan war hero, Haru Gafara. Here's a blurb from Aconite to give you a little taste of what's to come. The Golden General, Haru Gafara, desperately wants to understand the vast differences between the many species peppering the galaxy. When a traumatic meeting leads to a dire warning about the destruction of the universe, the reluctant hero dons his armor and sets out to explore a mysterious planet called Thunder's Edge. Guided by incomprehensible visions, his expedition quickly becomes one of pure survival as he and his crew are ambushed by the insidious necrovirus. Crash landing into uncharted territory, Haru soon realizes Thunder's Edge's momentous secrets demand all of his cunning to unravel, unleashing a dark fate that will offer salvation or vaporize the world as he knows it. So, as Gathering Storm, with countless new components 5 new factions and an entire new game mode in Twilights Fall, Thunder's Edge is truly colossal expansion packed to the brim with new content. Fans of Twilight Imperium won't want to miss out on this juggernaut and the tremendous additions it brings to the game. Look forward to adding Thunder's Edge to your collection when it arrives on the Galactic stage this October 24th. Thank you, Peter Schumacher, for writing up that article. That's very cool. Thank you to Dane Beltrami for creating this expansion and the entire team that worked on it. The art looks so cool. The art looks like funny and dumb and cool and epic, and the components look awesome. I'm so excited. Let's go ahead and check out the Asmodee store page that went up soon after this. So we have a couple pieces of information from this as well. Starting off with the price. So the original Twilight Imperium 4th edition box was $190. That's $189.99 USD. I'm talking in United States dollars. So that's $190. Prophecy of Kings was $125. And then this one is $130. So this might just be because of the last 5 years, prices going up and such. But the components list looks pretty epic. And in comparison to Prophecy of Kings, it's about the same, which is insane considering there were even more expansions in POK, but this must include more stuff and less expansions. So let's read what it says and then look at some of the pictures. The galaxy stands on the edge of a blade. A great struggle is coming, and only the greatest among them will triumph. Welcome to Thunder's Edge, a new expansion for TI 4th edition. This colossal expansion brings the classic interstellar conflict to a breaking point where everything revolves around the titular planet Thunder's Edge. New factions take the galactic stage, new worlds emerge for you to explore, and a suite of galactic events, modifiers that change the rules of the game, ensure that no 2 playthroughs will ever be the same. Also included is the new Twilights Fall mode, an alternate way to play TI. Take up the mantle of a Mad Mahawk King, build your own custom faction, and battle to become the supreme ruler of the galaxy. This mode comes with its own spread of unique components, making it an entirely new game. Not a standalone expansion. So, this is the interesting part. It says a copy of the TI 4th edition core set is required to play, not also POK. So that gives me the idea that all of these new factions can operate on their own, which also means that exploration and relics have to be in this box, which probably means that there's an entirely new set of them which you could mix in with the POK expansion. It's very odd the way that game designers, and I was talking to Dane about this, it's very odd the way game designers have to make expansions because they kind of have to be modular, but also work entirely together. So these new factions, of course, have leaders and everything, but let's say you bought this and you didn't buy POK, you would end up with a bunch of factions with leaders and mechs and such, and no leaders and mechs for things in the base game. So they have to be balanced around the fact that they can be played without them, or it just tells you that you can't play with them until you have POK, which is just, we'll see what happens, but I'm assuming it's the former, that they're balanced without them and then added those on top of them, if that makes sense. And that's all because POK introduced all the leaders and mechs and everything for the base game factions. That's why I'm saying that. So, the back of the box is really cool. We can see the art here. There's a couple of things I want to point out. We'll go to this little section over to the left, A Dark Future. It says all of the stuff that we've already read before, but we get to see the cool factions. They look like they have different sets of commodity values because the pink one has 3. The red one has 2. They do have specific flagships, which this one says the Scarlet Knife for the Ruby Monarch. And then there's El Nen Janovet, Saint of Swords, Herald of Thorns, and then something else for the yellow. And then, of course, the other ones like purple and everything. There's 8 of them. So that's cool. They don't have any faction abilities. Oh, the red one also has a mech. The sharpened something. Okay, that's cool. So they're different. They're not just like true Frankendraft. It's like different factions. So it's kind of like you're adding another 8 on top of it, but only for a different game mode. As we look over to the right, Ordinian is an actual system in the Salient Sun Task Force, the Last Bastion's home system has Ordinian as well as Revelation. So Ordinian is a planet, a 0/0 with a legendary planet ability. And Revelation, whoa. Ordinian is a legendary planet in a home system? Okay, that's sick. Revelation is a 1/2, and it's a space station, but it's treated like a planet. But it also has this little commodity thing next to it, which we don't know what that's about. Little commodity. There's a lot of these tokens. I'm assuming these little, like, triangle-looking tokens in the bottom right are galvanize. That's my assumption. And then we've got the fracture up here with the portal, which opens up with this token right here next to Allergout, or Allergroot, Allergout, a 2/1 planet, hazardous and cultural. Whoa, dual planet trait. So much new stuff, dual planet trait. So it's got a red and yellow tech spec, and it's a both hazardous and cultural. That's cool. Then we've got something, which is a 1/2 cultural planet here. And then Sion Station, another planet-esque space station. It's a 1/1 with that same commodity symbol, which is odd. Then we have Endira, a industrial planet, a 1/1 with a blue tech spec, with this kind of weird token on it. Then we have the Coquetus, something like that. It's a 3/0 with a relic as part of the fracture. We also have all of these Mahakt. It's looks like Mahakt relics, a Mahakt speaker token, the Call of the Void, which is another new event. I can actually read that, so let's read that off real quick. After you would move one or more units into the active system, if that system is in the fracture, gain 1 command token. When you activate a system in the fracture, apply +1 to the move values of each of your ships. Interesting. I'm assuming these little purple icons on the edges of these cards have to do with the Twilights Fall mode. So we've got some kind of weird symbol, some kind of unit upgrade symbol, and another weird symbol. More tokens, another legendary planet that can appear. Oh, this is Avernus. It's a 2/0 hazardous planet. This is the one that the Embers of Muon can create. Then we've got a couple other faction symbols that we haven't seen before, as well as the Last Bastion up on this. A full set of neutral units. There's the gray pieces. 5 new factions. We're looking at the Rale Nell Consortium, which is a lizard-type race, which might be Nalu, might not. But they've got a couple faction abilities, 4 commodities. They have a different flagship, of course, but they also have a destroyer, which is a 1/9 with a movement of 3 that can upgrade. So 4 move destroyers, which is sick. And then we have a bunch of new components listed. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but it's a lot of things. 479 tokens. Holy cow. Then we've got a little bit of a nicer picture of everything and the actual official box art, Twilight Imperium Thunder's Edge. Thank you very much for watching. This has been the Twilight Imperium Cardboard Crash Course YouTube channel. If you want to become a member, go ahead and click the join button. Members, don't worry, there is something coming out for you. The reason why it's been almost a month since my last upload is because I'm working on a comprehensive Discordant Stars video. Discordant Stars is a fan expansion for Twilight Imperium, and I'm covering every single faction in one video, which is gonna be 4 hours long. And it's gonna have some member content, so don't worry. But if you want to become a member, go ahead and click the join button. That really helps out. Starts at $2, $5. Thank you for all the members that are helping out on the YouTube channel right now. I'm going to put them on screen. And stay tuned on the Cardboard Crash Course for a interview that I am already starting to set up with Dane Beltrami, specifically about Thunder's Edge. So once Gen Con's done and FFG wants to talk about Thunder's Edge, we're going to do an interview with him. If you're excited, I'm excited too. We'll see what we can do. I am going to be redoing all of the faction guides for this channel specifically, including Last Bastion, the Rale Nell Consortium, and all of the other 3 other factions that were not shown off. So if you're as excited as I am, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time on the Cardboard Crash Course. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.